So welcome back everyone. Happy New Year. I hope you have all had a wonderful start to your new year of 2019. I have had so many requests on how to decorate a small space ever since we purchased new furniture, and I shared with all of you the videos of the different rooms that we did. Now, if you haven't been following me very long, I have a playlist on my channel here that shares with you the purchasing of new furniture in all of the rooms that we redecorated in our home. And we redecorated every room in our home with brand new furniture, with the exception of my home office, because that furniture was fairly new to begin with. Now, our home is a 1950s ranch style home, and although it is a decent amount of square footage, it does present obstacles because the rooms are small. When the homes were built back in the 50s, these rooms did not present a lot of space. And since there isn't a lot of space, that presents a lot of obstacles. So I'm going to do a small series on different things that you need to consider whenever you're trying to furnish or decorate in a small space. And today I'm going to share with you our family room and the different obstacles that I had to take into consideration in furnishing this room. And the first thing that I want to suggest to you is, before you head out to the furniture store to buy new furniture, which is always really exciting, but also can be extremely daunting, one of the things that I want to suggest to you first and foremost is to take into consideration how much seating space you want in that room. How much seating space are you going to need in the room that you're trying to furnish? Because that's going to, number one, help you identify how many pieces of furniture you need to purchase. There's nothing worse than overstuffing a room, basically. The long and short of it is, you have a visual in mind and then you go to the furniture store and you buy too much furniture. You also don't want to, say for instance, have a room that seats 7 people and then pick out furniture that's only going to accommodate 5. So the first thing that I did when we went to go look for our new furniture is I took into consideration how much seating room I wanted to have in this particular room. And I also took into consideration how I wanted the room to be laid out so that it would be easy to carry on conversation and to have it be a warm, inviting space. So before we even headed out to the showroom, those were 2 things that I took into consideration. Now, in this room, there are different obstacles. I have doors on every wall, or I have large windows. So we have a door that leads out to our garage. I have a door that leads out to my backyard. And then we have the entryway door from our kitchen into our family room. Obviously, I didn't want to put furniture in front of or in the way of any of those doors. So number 1, in terms of the obstacles, I had to take into consideration each one of those obstacles and each one of those doors. So when I was calculating in my mind how much space I wanted to have, I had to take into consideration that I had to accommodate for those 3 doors being in the way. The other thing is, you don't want to buy furniture that's too tall if it's going to have to sit in front of a window. So for instance, we have a chair that sits in front of our windows that leads to our backyard. I don't want that chair to obstruct the view of the windows looking outside. I think when you pass by a home and you see a large piece of furniture obstructing a window, it not only doesn't present well from the inside, it also doesn't present well from the outside. So there's nothing worse than putting a television or a large piece of furniture in front of a window. Number 1, you're not doing your room justice because you're blocking out that natural sunlight. Number 2, it just isn't aesthetically pleasing. So when I took into consideration the window, I wanted a piece of furniture that was going to have a lower profile back. So the chairs that I chose, the accent chairs in this room, both have lower backs. But I didn't want to compromise comfort in order to just have style. So I really investigated and looked at every piece of furniture until I found just the right fit and just the right comfort level for us. The other thing is, it's very, very important to measure your space. Know how much space you're going to have to work with. So for instance, with our sofa, I knew that I had to have a sofa that couldn't be any longer than 80 inches long because I had to account for side tables at each end of my sofa. I also had to take into consideration in measuring the side tables, I didn't want them to be taller than the sofa. I didn't want them to be longer than the depth, and I didn't want them to be too wide because one of the side tables sits by the entryway door that goes from our kitchen into our family room. So obviously I needed to keep that traffic pattern. So I needed to have easy flow and not have anything obstructing that. The other thing is, I don't want the furniture to look overcrowded. I knew that I wanted to have seating at least for 5 people in this room. So I chose 2 accent chairs, one that sits in front of the windows to our back door, and one that I have set at an angle facing the direction of all of the other pieces of furniture that create a good space for conversating. That particular chair sits at an angle because there is a door behind it. By angling that chair and setting it next to our television stand, it allowed for extra seating. It makes it look as if it's a cohesive space and it doesn't look crowded. So that's something to take into consideration as well, is finding different angles and different ways that you can set your furniture out. So what I did is I sat down and I sort of made a blueprint of our room and where everything was going to go and how it was going to be laid out. And I took my measurements before I went to the furniture store. With our television cabinet, I knew that with that wall, I had the obstacle of our garage door and our back door. So it couldn't be too long because I couldn't block the back door from opening, and it couldn't be too long because I needed to get seating space next to the television cabinet with an accent chair. So I simply chose a less, a shorter version of a television cabinet versus getting one that was extremely long. I chose one that, again, everything was measured precisely in this room. I chose one that would fit comfortably on that wall. It would be long enough, but not too long. I also had to take into consideration the depth. I needed to have that floor space because this room is not very large. So I chose one that was a little bit narrow of a profile so that I would get that extra floor space. I also had to take into consideration, since our television sits on that, I needed to make sure that it wasn't going to be too narrow to where our TV wouldn't stand on it. And I achieved that. So when the delivery people delivered our furniture, they were so surprised and said, "You actually have measured everything so perfectly. I'm shocked that everything fit in this room and that it all fit comfortably and that it looks well." So after, taking all those things into consideration, I really realized how important it truly was to have those measurements, know my room, know my space, know how much seating I wanted to have before I went out looking for furniture. The other thing that you have to take into consideration are your heating and air conditioning vents and your outlets. So my sofa could not block my heat vents. So I also had to take that into consideration when I was choosing the length of my sofa. I also had to take into consideration the depth of the sofa because I didn't want to take up too much of my floor space, provided that it is a smaller room. The funny thing is, the furniture that's in there actually makes the room look larger now than it did before, because I precisely and very calculatedly chose each individual piece. Now, another suggestion is, and what we did, is we found side tables that have outlets and USB ports in them. The wonderful thing about that is that I can plug in one end table into an outlet, and then I have 4 additional outlets. So once we plugged our end tables into the wall outlets, I was able to plug my lamp into my end table. And it also freed up an electrical port for me to plug in to do my vacuuming. So I don't have to move furniture out of the way to get to an outlet to vacuum in that room. So I have an additional outlet built into the back of that table. Also, long cords. We all know the struggle of either having to use a portable charger for our phones or having to have a long cord drug from one outlet all the way behind the sofa around to a table to charge your phone. These have USB ports built into the back of them, so I'm able to simply plug my phone charger into the back of my end table and charge it right there without having all of those cords. If you're somebody like me who hates to see cords, this is a great alternative for you. So all the end tables that I chose in our bedroom and the end tables that I chose, the nightstands and the end tables, they have USB ports and they have charging stations built into them. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about in our family room, I'm going to share with you each of our rooms and all the different obstacles because I've had such an overwhelming response from people about having to furnish spaces that were small after sharing these videos. They were looking for tips and ideas and different ways that they too can take into consideration space. So the last thing I'm going to share with you from our family room is storage. I needed to have storage space for our DVDs. I needed to have a place to put our cable box. I needed to have a place to put our throws. And so in looking at our television cabinet, it provided all the storage that I needed to get the clutter from off of the top and hidden away behind the doors. I also have extra storage there for my throw blankets. In each of our end tables, there are large drawers. So I'm able to store our remotes and different things like that, our extra coasters in those drawers. That's so important. Our prior furniture had no storage space, hardly at all. The other thing is, I didn't want a large piece of furniture in the middle of the room. So we have collapsible storage ottomans, which I shared a video on those. And I wanted something that you could move around. So if you're sitting in a chair, you can move the ottoman over there. If you're sitting on the sofa, you can move the ottoman to the sofa. We have 2 of them. They're 24 inches round, 16 inches deep, and they store a lot. So for instance, we had a gathering yesterday for New Year's Day, and I stored my toss pillows from my sofa and my accent chairs in my storage ottomans. And then I moved the storage ottomans out of the room so that we would have a lot of floor space. That's really important whenever you're entertaining, is to clear toss pillows off of your sofas and your chairs. Number 1, it's uncomfortable for your guests to sit on them. Number 2, they break them down. So that's an extra side tip. So I stored those away, moved the storage ottomans into my office, and it worked perfectly. But now I not only have storage in my television cabinet, I have storage in my side tables, and I have storage in those ottomans. So I hope some of these tips are very helpful for you whenever you're considering buying new furniture for a new space. So I hope you all found this video useful. There's some tips that you can take away from it. I am going to do this as a small series. It's not going to be a large one, but I am going to share with you the different obstacles from the different rooms and the different pieces of furniture and why I chose what we chose to refurnish our home. So if you haven't done so, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so that you're notified of new videos. Check out my video description for links to all my social media sites, my Instagram, my Pinterest, my Facebook page, my website. The AtHomeWithZane website is in there as well. Be sure and check those out. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll look for you the next time.